I think we're live. Oh, sorry guys, 1 second. My phone is lagging. There we go. I think we are live. How is everyone today? Happy Monday. Just want to double check that this is live. Cool. Say hi if you can see me on Instagram. I think the platform might have changed a little bit since I was live the last time. So it looks a little different and I can't tell if we are actually live or not. So if you are here with me on Instagram, say hi, please, so I know that you are live with me. But good afternoon. Thank you guys so much for joining me. You should know me by now, but if you don't, my name is Samantha, and I'm the Artistic Director with Aqua Hair Extensions. Now, before everyone says, why aren't you wearing a mask with your model, I do have a beautiful model. She's actually my little sister.
Hello.
And her name is Amanda, and she's here with me today to be my model for our session number 6. Tips and tricks with hand-tied weft. We are going to dive deep into some questions that a lot of stylists have been asking and challenges that they have experienced with the hand-tied weft system. So I'm super excited to just go into those today. I am going to be demoing some of the hand-tied weft application live. As you can see, I already pre-beaded, I'm gonna go ahead and turn your head here. I already pre-beaded her hair. And just to clarify, when I pre-beaded her hair, I did pre-bead with blonde beads. I'll talk about why I did that in a moment and why I did not use beads that match her hair color, but I just wanted to preface that. So before we get started, it's been a while. It has been a month since I saw you all. So I just want to toast to you. Cheers. Happy Monday. Thank you guys so much for being here. If you're watching the replay, happy sunny day, hopefully wherever you are. I'm in my salon currently. I live in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, which is about 10 minutes from Akron, Ohio, and about 45 minutes south of Cleveland, if you're familiar. And it is sunny here today. However, yesterday, Mother's Day. Happy belated Mother's Day to all of you that are moms out there. However, it was snowing here yesterday. It was freezing rain, snowing all day. I felt so bad for all the moms who wanted to be outside and enjoy the weather, because unfortunately you cannot do that yesterday. And I did see a really funny like meme or something on Facebook that said, it better rain / snow just as bad on Father's Day, or I'm gonna be kicking over some grills. Did anybody else read that? I thought it was so funny. So toast to you. Thank you guys so much for being here, and let's dive right in. So like I mentioned, I already pre-beaded Amanda. Hold on 1 second. I don't know that we are live on Instagram. So on my end, it says we're live, but I don't know that we are. Hold on just 1 second. I think my app might be having some technical difficulties. There we go. All right, let's try this again. Okay, I apologize. I said on my end we were live, but I do not think we were live. So I'll just recap that again really quickly. Thank you guys for joining me. Again, my name is Samantha. I'm the Artistic Director with Aqua. If you're watching on Instagram, you're probably like, okay, why is she just jumping right in? I apologize. I thought we were live. For some reason, we were not live on Instagram, only on Facebook and Vimeo. So thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching this for the second time, bear with me. I'm here with my beautiful model, who also happens to be my little sister. Her name is Amanda, and we are going to be doing some hand-tied weft extensions on her today. However, she truly does not need extensions. This girl has so much hair, such thick, dense hair. I know you can't see it because half of it's pinned up, but we are going to be giving her 1 row of hand-tied weft extensions today. So again, thank you for joining me. We did toast, but I'll toast again to all of you for being here. Happy Monday, happy Monday. It's very sunny where I am, thank goodness, because it snowed and rained all day yesterday. It was so yucky, but I'm in my salon here in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio. So, like I said, we are going to be jumping right into the hand-tied weft extension. You asked so many questions and troubleshooting with the hand-tied weft. So I know some stylists have been experiencing quite a few challenges with the hand-tied weft system, whether it is with the application, with the removal, with the maintenance, with the longevity of your guests' wear. So I just want to troubleshoot some of those today. I know in previous sessions, I did do a hand-tied weft session. However, I just want to make sure that today we troubleshoot any questions that you guys have. So if you're watching live on Instagram, on Facebook, or on YouTube, please do not hesitate to ask your questions in the comments. I'll be answering all of your questions live. I am going to be demoing the application, but I want to make sure any and all of your questions are answered in this next hour. So again, I want to make this just for you. So please do not hesitate. Ask your question. We will make sure that we go ahead and answer all of your questions live. So I'm going to jump right on in. So as you can probably see, I did go ahead and pre-bead Amanda's hair. Okay, and I went ahead and beaded her with blonde beads just because I want to make sure that you can see the application today while I'm doing it. Right? If she was a guest that came into the salon to get hand-tied weft extensions, I absolutely would match her bead color to her hair color, which hers would be dark brown. I would say she's pretty much, she has about 8 to 9 inches of virgin hair, and then her ends are previously lightened and then toned over. She is roughly a level 4. Okay, I know it's hard to tell on the camera, but she's roughly a level 4. So I would choose dark brown beads for her hair. But again, today I went ahead and beaded her with blonde beads. I'm gonna pull your head forward just a smidge. I'm gonna move her around so I can see her. I have 2 cameras going on. So you can see I went ahead and beaded her the whole way around, and I'm just gonna spin her. And again, when we are beading, right, notice how many beads I have in the hair. Right, super important to ensure that your beads are roughly the same width as the bead once it has been flattened in the hair, and depth. So we say we'd like the beads to be a 1/4 inch wide by a 1/4 inch deep, and they need to be a rounded scoop section, right? So with our application, we ensure that everything lays natural and flat. 0 over direction, 0 elevation. So when we are applying any beads in the hair, we want to make sure we are not over directing whatsoever into that section and then place the beads. So when we are doing that scoop section, that ensures that there's no over direction of any squares or no tension spots. And we ensure that the section we take is just as wide as the bead once it has been flattened. Therefore, again, there's no over direction. So take a little note again of the beadwork that I have did here, because I want to make sure that your beads match up just as evenly. Notice my beads, I can freely lift them up and down, right? Freely lift them up and down. They're not pulling, tugging on her hair whatsoever. And there still is that 1/4 inch of space between her scalp and the bead because I took a scoop section. So my bead is sitting at the bottom of my scoop, ensuring that it's not too close to the scalp. Okay. All right, so the very first thing that I'm going to do is demonstrate how to stack and fold the wefts. So before we do that, okay, a challenge that has occurred in the past and some of the troubleshooting questions that I have received is the ends of the weft are shedding, right? The ends of the weft, the knot has come apart. Why does that happen and what do I do? First and foremost, we never, ever, ever cut the weft, okay? This weft can never be cut. If the weft is cut, the weft will completely unravel and all of the hair will shed out. Okay, we have to ensure the weft does not get cut. Secondly, the only thing that's holding this weft together because it is handmade, right? It is handmade. The only thing holding it together is this very small knot on the end of the weft. Okay, that knot is holding all of this hair together. So what I teach in all of my education classes is to add an insurance policy to the knot. Okay, add an insurance policy. And that insurance policy is an extra knot to reinforce the first knot. Okay, so what I like to do is there will always be 3 extra pieces of thread, really long pieces of thread at the end of the weft. Yes, we do want to cut off that extra thread, but before we do, there are 3 pieces here. Go ahead and take 2 in one hand, 1 in your other hand, and we're going to triple knot this, just like you're tying your shoes, okay? Triple knot just like you are tying your shoes. Let me get it in both cameras here. So I'm going to take and do 1 knot, 2 knots. And again, this is me just adding an insurance policy to my weft. So I'm just really tightly reinforcing that knot. So now I have the knot that was pre-formed on there, and then I just added an extra knot, okay? And then what I want to do is leave at least a half of an inch of thread after the knot. I don't want to cut right at the knot, right? I need to allow for that knot, to loosen slightly. So I'm just going to leave about a half of an inch, okay? Leave a half of an inch, and then I'm going to cut off the extra thread. So I left a half of an inch still on my weft, okay? Then I'll go to the other side, and I will do the same exact thing. So again, I have 3 pieces of thread here, right? 1, 2, 3. Now, if you don't realize, these 3 pieces of thread, that is what makes up this weft. That's it. 3 pieces of thread and hair. There are no excess glues, no adhesives, no extra fabric, right? On our hand-tied weft extensions, it's just these 3 pieces of thread. So I'm going to put 2 in one of my hand and 1 in the other hand, just like you're tying your shoes, okay? And triple knot, nice and tight. Again, I'm just adding that insurance policy onto my weft to ensure it does not come loose. And if it does, I just added an extra knot on there, okay? Leave a half of an inch, cut off the extra, okay? I went ahead and did all of my other wefts before we jumped on. So this way I just wanted to demonstrate this one weft, okay? The last thing that I like to do before I actually apply the weft is once this weft comes out of the packaging, it has a lot of kinks in it, right? It's all bound up in a bundle. I took my flat iron on very, very low heat, like 200 degrees, and I just tapped slightly along the weft itself just to smooth it out. Okay, so that's just a little trick to ensure that you're getting everything laid nice and flat. Okay. Alrighty, so I'm gonna go ahead and start laying my wefts. Now, why I chose to place this row directly in the center is because we just are adding for her, let's say we're just adding fullness. I'm not adding any length onto her hair. If I'm just applying 1 row of hand-tied weft extensions, I'm typically doing that for some fullness, maybe just for color purposes. So that's actually why she's going to be wearing it. We're gonna leave this in. We'll see how long she lasts with it in. But we are just adding this 1 row in for color, because I don't want to add some lightened pieces or highlight her hair. I just want to add 1 row just to create some pops of color, okay? So I chose to do this right in the center just to give her those pops of color right throughout the center of her hair. Alrighty, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna spin her just slightly. I'm going to take the front of my weft. Oh, I gotta grab my clips. I'm gonna take the front of my weft and line this up with the front bead. Now I want it just slightly over the bead, okay? Just slightly, but I do not want a huge flap or overhang. So I just want it to slightly, sorry, let me adjust this here. Just slightly hang over the bead in the front, but I want to cover up the beads fully with the weft. So I do not want to see any of the beads with my weft. And I'm going to take my single prong metal clip it at a 45-degree angle around that very front bead. I'm going to clip that into place. Okay, keeping medium tension, skip a few beads, place another clip again, making sure your beads are all the way covered up at a 45-degree angle. Clip to the bead. Continue doing that the entire way around the head. Okay, so I'm just continuing around the head, medium tension. I don't want to pull too tight because then once I let go of the bead, the clip, it's going to spring back. So I'm just going to clip around. Okay, once I get to the front, notice that my weft is longer than my section. Okay, the weft is longer than my section. What I need to do is create a fold and have this fold line up with my front bead. So I created a fold. My fold will line up with my front bead and I clip that front bead into place. Okay, I'm gonna grab my second weft. And since my first weft, I started on her right side, went all the way around to the left, and I folded here, I'm going to stack my second weft on to brick-lay the wefts together, okay? I do not want to have two folds directly on top of each other, and I do not want all of my wefts stacked together in the same exact spot, right? We want our wefts to be as seamless and as least bulky as possible, okay? Because they're a hand-tied weft, they're already very thin and fine. We want to have that to our advantage. We don't want to stack them all up right on top of each other. Let's say I'm just stacking them up and I'm creating all of these folds right on top of each other. That gets very bulky. So we want to brick lay them in the sense to where the folds are all staggered and they're not directly on top of each other. I see Misty has a great question. She said, how do you explain the difference of hand-tied versus machine weft as far as how it's sewn? Great question, Misty. So the hand-tied weft is handmade. Okay, the hand-tied weft, like I mentioned earlier, is just simply those 3 pieces of thread on the end of the weft. That's all this entire weft is made of, is 3 pieces of thread with hair knotted to that thread. Okay, a machine weft has much more fabric at the top of the weft, and it is physically made with a sewing machine, hence why there's a lot more fabric at the top, and a machine weft can be cut, and it's not going to start to shed and fall apart because there's more thread and fabric created at the top of the weft. So a machine weft is a lot more bulky than a hand-tied weft. It's a lot more thicker, and you'll see there's just more thread at the top of a machine weft versus the hand-tied. All right. So I'm going to start my second weft right in the front over top of my fold on the side I had just left off. So I'm going to start right here. I'm going to lift my clip and reattach now my first weft and my second weft together. So I lifted and reattached, just ensuring that everything is stacked neatly. And now just continue in the same fashion. Lift, reattach now 2 wefts. Continue to spin. I'll lift this clip and reattach both wefts. And so as I'm doing that, I'm just making sure that my wefts are perfectly stacked right on top of each other. Nothing has slid. I don't want to lose any wefts as I'm doing this. I just want them to be perfectly stacked. So this way when I'm ready to sew, they are stacked neatly on top of each other. So when I get to the front, I have a little bit extra. I'm just going to go ahead and fold. Now I have a fold on the right, a fold on the left, and then a single weft on the right and a single weft on the left. Cool. All right, I'm going to take my third weft. And instead of starting in the front on this weft, because again, now I have technically 3 layers of weft in this very front section, right? Because I have this little fold, I have the other side of that same weft, and then I have my very first weft. So instead of then layering more in the front, because she has very fine hair here in the front, she's very dense and thick, but she has very fine baby hairs like most of us here in the front. So I do not want to make this very front section of the weft bulky. I want it to be nice and flat and lay very flat. So instead of starting in the front, I'm actually going to move 1 bead back where this little guy had left off, if you can see. Starting here. So again, this will allow for it to be less bulky in the front. So I'm just lifting and clipping, lifting and clipping. And again, now this is my third weft. Lifting and clipping, lifting and clipping. Snag 1 more. And again, instead of going all the way to the front, I'm going to stop 1 bead back and then create my fold. So this will allow for less weight in the front. And again, I want to make sure that I have all of my wefts. I always peek down behind, ensuring that I do have them all before I clip them into place. All right, and then my fourth and final weft. Again, if you notice, I'm going back and forth in like a zigzag pattern. So I started on the right, I went around to the left, my second weft started on the left, went around to the right, and again, my third weft started on the right, back to the left, and now I'm going to make my way back again to the right. Okay, and when I do fold, I always come across and fold back over, right? So I start on the right, come around to the left, and then I fold back over. I never tuck it under and fold, right? I want to see that fold, so I always fold it back across. And then my final weft. Okay, so my fourth weft can be put a few different places. So with my guests with finer hair, okay, my guests with more finer hair on the sides, naturally, your guests have more hair in the back, right? Your guests are a lot more dense in the back than on the sides. So notice on her sides, I already have 3 layers some places, and some places 4 layers, right? Over here I have 3 and 4 layers already on the sides. Now I could take my fourth weft, again, start directly beyond my fold on the left, go around to the right and fold, right? However, I like to take my fourth weft, again, on my guests who have finer hair on the sides. And notice, again, that she does. I know it's a little, let me put her over here. It's a little hard to see, but she does have very fine hair here, just on the sides of her hair. The rest of her hair is super thick and dense. So I want to create density where density is needed, but I do not want to over densify the areas that just do not allow for that or cannot hold that weight. So instead, what I like to do is take my fourth weft, fold it in half, okay? Take my fourth weft, fold it in half, and I'm gonna put hers right in the center back. This way I'm creating the most density in the back instead of on the sides, okay? Or, again, I ended on my left side, I could start back on the left, work my way around to the right, and fold over here. Or I could skip a fourth weft altogether, right? We know that the max wefts we would put in each row is 4, okay? The max amount of wefts you would ever place in each row is 4. However, some guests may only need 3. Okay, some guests 3 is perfect. So we do not have to put a fourth weft on. It is optional, and you could, like I said, place it in those few different places. So I'm going to take my fourth weft, fold it in half, and we're going to place it in the center back of her hair where she does need that density, okay? I guess maybe where she doesn't need the density. I said that incorrectly. I apologize. Where she can afford to place the density, right? I could not afford really to have that density on her sides or it's going to feel very thick and bulky. Not all guests are that way. Some guests, absolutely, you can have 4 on the sides and the whole way around and it would be perfectly fine. So again, I'm just ensuring that everything's stacked up nicely before I start to sew. So before I start to sew, everything is stacked up very nicely. And now I'm ready to start sewing. So I am going to use black thread to sew, again, because this is a good contrast against the blonde hair. And if anybody was wondering, the hair color that I'm using is color number 22. Color number 22 is what I'm using in her hair. Okay. So I'm going to take my needle and black thread. Since I'm right-handed, I like to start my sewing on the left side. Okay, I'm right-handed. I like to start my sewing on the left side. This way I'm not overlapping my previous work. Okay, while I'm getting ready, I have another question. Why use 3 or 4 hand-tied wefts to bulk up and not 1 or 2 machine wefts? That's a good question, Miss Megan on Facebook. At Aqua, we only sell hand-tied wefts. So we do not carry any machine wefts. That's why I would not use them. We only carry the hand-tied weft. But also because for me, the hand-tied weft is very versatile, right? I can choose how many wefts I would like in that row. And no matter what, even if I'm stacking multiple hand-tied wefts, they're still not quite as thick as what a machine weft would be at the top. Okay, there's nothing wrong with using machine weft if that's what you choose. We do not carry machine wefts at Aqua. We just carry the hand-tied weft. All right, so I'm going to spin her here. Move my sorry guys, I want to make sure that both cameras have a really good view of what I'm doing here. All right. So when I'm starting to sew, a few of the troubleshooting questions that we get often, right, is how do I get that needle and thread around the bead properly to secure the weft and keep the weft nice and tight? Okay, great question. We get that question very often. I want to make sure that I'm showing you exactly how to make sure the needle is going properly behind the bead. Okay, so just so you can see what I'm doing, I'm going to fold this out of the way. Again, I would never sew with out the weft there, but just so you can see what I'm doing, I'm just going to fold this out of the way. Okay, so we always start on the third bead back when I'm working in the temple area. Okay, these 3 beads are called my anchor beads. I always start on the third bead back. And essentially what I need to do is hold my thumb directly at the base of the bead. Okay, hold my thumb on the bead, hold the bead in place. Okay, I'm gonna take my needle completely vertical. So my needle's always vertical. And I am taking and putting my needle through the center of the hair above the bead. Okay, directly through the center of the hair above the bead. I'm going to go behind the bead. As soon as I pass beyond the bead vertically, I'm going to poke my thumb and instantly pull it straight out. Okay, when I do that, now I just ensure that I split through the center of the hair above the bead and I exited through the center of the hair below the bead. Okay? So I went through the center of the hair above, behind, exited, straight through the center of that bead. That ensures that knot stays directly in the dead center of that bead. If I do not exit through the center, I'm going to, quote unquote, miss the bead is what we call it. So if I don't go through the center above, or if I go through the center above, but I do not exit through the center, if I don't hold my thumb there, and I do not exit through the center, it's going to kick off to the side and create a knot on the hair above the bead. I'm not actually going to ever use that bead as my anchor to hold my weft into place, okay? I had a question that says, how do I thread my needle? That is actually a good question. I guess I could take this off and demonstrate it again one more time. So I did not demonstrate it, I apologize. So how I thread my needle. Take my needle and my spool of thread. I actually hold the spool of thread in my non-dominant pinky, okay? The quickest way to do this. Hold my thread in my non-dominant pinky. Make sure that your thread is cut nice and sharp. Okay, make sure it's cut nice and sharp. And thread through the eye of your needle. Okay, through the eye of the needle. Grab the end of your thread. So my spool's on my pinky, my thread is in that same hand, and my needle's in my opposite hand. Okay, and I start to pull. And I pull. I'm gonna back up. Pull, 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 keep on pulling. And I know you can't tell, but I'm almost 6 feet tall, so my wingspan is almost 6 feet wide. I'm going to stretch my arms out, see, as far as I possibly can. Stretch my arms out, okay? Then I'm going to cut the needle, cut the thread from my spool, okay? That allows for my thread to be completely doubled. I do not put any knots in the thread whatsoever, so my ends are married together, okay? They're not knotted whatsoever, and my thread is my entire wingspan. So essentially, it's my wingspan doubled, okay? If you are 5'5" or shorter, give yourself a little more thread beyond your wingspan, fingertip to fingertip. Cool? I hope that helps. All right. So again, I want to ensure that that needle's always going above, behind, through the center, keeping that knot in the dead center of the bead, okay? Now, I'm gonna put everything back into place so you can see the sewing. I'm not going to sew her entire row on camera today. I will do it and I'll take photos of it and post them for you to see, but it gets very monotonous if you just watch me sew 25 beads, but I will do the most important parts. All right, so anytime there is a clip in my way, here, I just take it out and clip it directly underneath the bead just to hold everything in place where I need it to be. I'm going to adjust this Instagram one more time, guys. There we go. Just want to make sure everyone can see very well what I'm doing. Perfect. Okay. So again, I'm going to start on the third bead back. Make sure my clips are not in my way, but they're still securing everything into place. Make sure I have all of my wefts. Kind of peek behind, make sure they're all there. Hold my thumb very tight on that third bead. Okay, I want to hold that bead into place. I'm going to take my needle, go completely vertical through the center of the hair above the bead. I feel it go behind, poke my thumb, pull it straight out. Okay, and then I pull. So I'm going to pull, and I work directly in front of the bead that I'm sewing on. I pull, pull, pull. Stop when I'm 3 to 4 inches away from pulling it the whole way through. Stop here. Anytime I'm not using my needle or I do not need it, hook it up into the hair just to get it out of my way. Now I'm going to triple knot these two together. We call it a box knot. Triple knot these two together. Okay, again, it's the same thread, but I'm triple knotting one end to the rest. So 1, nice and tight. 2, 3. Take this little guy, my little extra flap. I don't want to cut it off yet. I just want to clip it up and out of the way. Okay, grab my needle, and now I'm ready to start sewing. So that first knot we call a box knot. Just do it once, just to get me ready to sew. All right, so I'm going to hold my thumb on the base of the bead on that third bead again. So I'm still on the same exact bead that I just did my box knot on, and I'm going to go through the center above, behind, underneath, poke my thumb, pull it straight out again. When I pull it out, I need to be to the right or left of my needle. Cannot come up to the center of this loop that I've created. I need to go to the right or left. Does not matter which one. Pull. And I like to keep the thread up and off of the hair the entire time. So I pull, pull, keep on pulling, and I keep my hands nice and close to the scalp. I don't want to take my needle and punch it up to the ceiling. So I'm going to pull, bringing the slack in, pull, pull, and I stop when I'm 2 to 3 inches away from pulling the whole way through. So I stop here. 2 fingers straight down and make 2 spins. 1, 2. And I spin in the direction of the hand that I'm spinning with. So I'm using my right hand. I'm going to spin to the right. Take my thread, throw it over my thumb. My needle goes straight down through my loop, and I pull it out. Now I know I'm doing this kind of quickly, right? So those of you that, again, this is troubleshooting. This is a recap. This is not a certification class. So I am breaking it down a little bit just as a recap. However, if this is brand new to you, we break this down significantly slower in all of our certification classes, okay? We have virtual, and we are just starting to do some in-person hands-on certification classes depending on where you live in the country. So again, I am doing this a little quicker for those of you if this is brand new. So please take a certification class with us if you've never saw this before. So I brought everything nice and close. Again, I'm going to pull it straight down, and I'm going to lock this knot straight up, and then push it nice and close to the scalp. And I want that knot to live on the top of my weft. It's all really nice and tight when it lives on the top of my weft. Now I'm going to move forward. Get all this little slack out of my thread. Hold my thumb, the base of that bead. Okay, this is where keeping it nice and tight comes into play. So I'll show you how to ensure your thread stays nice and tight in between your beads. Hold my thumb on the second bead. Center of the hair above the bead, behind, underneath, poke my thumb, pull it out. I cannot come through the center. I have to come to the right or left. Pull it out. Keep my thread up and off of the hair just to keep it nice and clean. And I pull. Pull, pull. Stop when I'm 2 to 3 inches away from pulling it through. 2 spins to the right. 1, 2. Throw the thread up and over my thumb. Get out any flyaways. Needle goes down through my loop, and it gets pulled out. I drop my loop down to 1 finger. Now this is what is going to make or break the tightness of your weft. If I let go of my loop, notice this thread is the thread that's going in between my 2 knots. We want that thread to be as tight as possible. That is what is going to allow for your weft to stay nice and tight and not sag. So if I pull my loop nice and taut, that's going to keep this thread nice and taut. So I tug a little bit on my loop, tug to make it tighter. Tug my loop, tug on the needle side to make it tighter. Back and forth, let go at the very last second. Okay, if I were to let that go and just tighten my knot, this is going to be very loose. Okay, another trick, if for some reason it is loose and you're like, oh crap, how do I make it tighter? Grab your needle, slide it underneath of the knot. Okay, loosen your knot, pull on it nice and tight. Slowly wiggle your needle, wiggle the thread. Wiggle your needle, wiggle the thread to get it nice and tight again. Okay, that will allow you to make it tighter even after you've already let go. So first thing I always do is pull straight down and then lock it straight up. And notice I'm pulling down on the weft and up on my thread just to ensure that if I just pull up on this thread, I'm gonna rip her hair. So I want to make it nice and gentle for her. And do you see how close my hands are to the scalp? Okay, how close they are. I do not pull out here. I get very close and just gently tug. Okay, I'm gonna move one forward and do the same thing. Okay, pull it out. Pull, pull, pull. Notice I'm always working directly in front of the bead that I'm working on. 2 spins. Needle goes down through my loop. Pull it out. Get all of my little hairs. I actually picked a few up with that one. Okay, the front bead is the most important. This is the one that always wants to slide off, so we need to make sure we're staying directly in front of this front bead. Okay, keeping the tension nice and tight in my loop. Pulling, 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 pulling. Let go. Pull it straight down to get all the slack out, and I lock it straight up. Okay, I want that knot to live on the top of my weft. Okay, somebody had a question. Okay, we have a few questions. I will answer those in a little while. It'll pertain to a few other things. So if you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask them. We have some awesome moderators on today at Aqua that are feeding me all of your questions. So again, this very front bead gets 2 lock knots, 2 in a row, 2 lock knots. I'm gonna spin twice. Needle goes down through my loop. Okay, I'm only gonna do a few more knots just so you can see the tension, and then we'll move on to tacking. So again, I kept it nice and tight, let go, pull it straight down. So I pull it straight down, that gets the slack out, and then I lock it up. And when I lock it up, that ensures that that knot is nice and tight. My knot is sitting up on the top of my weft. Right, I'm gonna go back to my second. So notice I started at my third, then I went from the second, then the first gets a second lock knot, back to the second, back to the third. So if anyone is struggling with the pattern, remember our first 3 beads in the temple row are our anchor beads. They each get 2 lock knots on them. You always go in sequential order, you never skip any. So you always go 3, 2, 1, then 1, 2, 3. Okay, again, holding it nice and taut. Pulling it straight down, locking it straight up. Just one little hair that got up there. There we go. Okay, then I'm gonna go back to the third bead. Hold my thumb, so it's super important. That thumb holding the bead and you poking your thumb ensures that you are staying perfectly vertical and you've actually hit the bead. Someone asked, is this cotton thread instead of nylon? Brittany on Instagram, yes. This is cotton thread, and it's like double cotton thread. I absolutely love it. It grips the hair very nicely, and it's super sturdy. So I know some thread can be very flimsy and break. This is very, very sturdy cotton thread. Okay, so I'm just going to continue in that same pattern the entire way around her head, okay? Everything looks exactly the same. I would continue lock knot, lock knot, lock knot, lock on every single bead the entire way around her head, okay? I work all the way to the front. That front bead gets 2 in a row, back to number 2, back to number 3, and I end there, okay? So notice each like thread in between the 2 beads are nice and taut. That's going to allow for no sagging of the weft. If you were to sew and you were not, I'll do one more, if you were not keeping that nice and taut, the weft absolutely will sag below the bead. So I get that question often, why does my weft not stay nice and tight and it starts to sag? That would exactly be why, okay? If your sewing is not tight, so if I were to let this go too soon, okay, pull it down, lock it up, notice all of this extra thread, okay? It doesn't look like much, but that's very loose. In turn, that's going to sag. That's instantly what's going to happen. So your weft is going to expose all the beads, and your guest essentially is going to lose a few weeks of wear because it's very loose, okay? So we want to keep everything nice and tight up above the beads and ensure that the thread in between our beads stay tight. Okay, so I'm going to take a pause there. If you have any questions, please let me know. We're going to pause there with our sewing because again, it just continue in that same exact fashion. And I'm going to demonstrate next how to tack down the front corners of the weft. So how many of you experienced the challenge of we just sew to here and you wonder why your guest has this very front corner that kind of flops a little bit, and or this front stitch comes off of the bead. Anyone? Do we experience that? Okay, so I think what we're skipping is the tacking down of the front bead. I see Gina on Instagram. She says, can you repeat the pattern again? Yes. So Gina, the pattern when you're sewing, you start always on bead number 3. You do that very first box knot. Okay, that's the triple knot. Then you do a lock knot on that same bead. Okay, lock knot on that same bead. Then you move to bead number 2 and do a lock knot. Bead number 1, 2 lock knots in a row, back to 2, back to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the whole way around to the very front bead on the opposite side. This very front bead gets 2 in a row. You move back 1 to bead number 2, back to bead number 3, and you end there. Okay, so you always start and end on bead number 3. The very front bead always gets 2 in a row. So we do 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, all the way over. Let's say this is number 25 in the very front. You do number 25 again, back to 24, back to 23. Okay? That ensures that these side first 3, your anchor beads, are very secure, and they each will have 2 knots on them. This very first one technically will have 3 because of the box knot. All right, so I always want to tack down my front beads, okay? This just lays this front weft down nice and tight, okay? Not so tight that it's hurting them or it's going to pull by any means, but it lays it down nice and flat, I should say, so your guest cannot pick at it, it doesn't poke out, and then also it ensures that this very front knot does not slip off, okay? Alrighty, so what I'm gonna do is, let me slide this one more time. Okay, if you've taken any certification classes with me or any of our national educators on virtual or in person, so we teach to take the needle through the center of the bead. I'm going to show you two different ways to tack. So we'll take the needle through the center of the hair above the bead, kick it out to the very edge of the weft, exit through the very edge of the weft, pull, and then I will triple knot just to lay this nice and flat, okay? However, I've been playing around with tacking over the last few months, and I've found a much easier way, I think, to keep it nice and tight. Because again, stylists are saying, I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, however, my tack is not staying tight. Okay, so watch what I'm doing here. It's very, very similar, but I think it will help with keeping it tight. So I'm gonna take my needle. I go through the center of the bead and the very front, that very first bead. I go through the center, but instead of exiting through the center like we always have, I'm going to kick it forward, turn it at a 45-degree angle forward, still slide behind the bead, but exit on the very edge of my weft. Okay, so I exit on the very, very edge instead of through the center. This will put me at a diagonal on the very front corner of this weft. So I pull it out. And traditionally, I would pull, and then I would cut off the end of my thread and triple knot, right? Instead, keep pulling, stop, okay? Don't pull it through. We need room on this end to tie. Go in with your needle, do the same thing again. Through the center above, kick it at a 45-degree angle, exit on the edge of the weft, but now come up through the center of this loop you've just created. Okay, come up right through the center of it. The hardest thing when you're doing this is keeping all of those extra little hairs in the front down. And then pull that nice and tight. Okay, I'm gonna cut off enough for me to tie. So I cut off my needle and thread. And I triple knot these two. So essentially all that I did was anchored one more time before I triple knot, and I would just triple knot those. So do you see just how that creates a nice extra hold in the very front of the weft to make it nice and flat? Okay, I'm gonna do it one more time, and then this next one I'll actually knot. So I'm gonna take this out. One more time for you all to see. Right. Make sure I have both of these covered. I'm gonna move YouTube just a smidge so everyone can see what I'm doing. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go through the center of the hair above the bead, right? Just like I traditionally would, but instead of coming out through the center, 45-degree angle forward, okay, 45-degree angle forward, and I exit through the very edge of the weft. Okay, so I exited through the very edge of that weft. And I pull, 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 pull. Stop when I'm maybe 3 to 4 inches away from pulling it through. I need to use this side to tie. I'm gonna go back in and do it again. Go back through the center of the top. Instead of coming straight out, 45-degree angle forward, edge of the weft, come right up through the center of this loop, right through the center, and pull. And when I pull, make it nice and tight, cut off my needle and thread, and I'm going to triple knot these two. So essentially, it's this, if you've taken a class with us before, it's very similar, but I went down through twice just to create this extra piece of thread and this extra loop in this knot just to secure it a little bit better. 2 and 3. So make sure that's nice and tight. Leave a 1/2 inch slack after my knot always, and I cut off the extra. Okay, so again, you see that just laid down my corner very nicely, okay? Made it nice and flat. She can't pick at it, I can't pick at it, and it's not going to pull when she lifts and pulls her hair up. It's not going to slide that very first lock knot off of the bead. Okay, let me answer just a few questions. Okay, let's see. Move to this. Never done hand-tied wefts. How many come in a bundle? Great question. So Candace says, was it Candace? I apologize. Lorraine. Lorraine says, how many wefts come in a bundle? Great question. So 14-inch and 18-inch, you do get 4 wefts per bundle. And 22-inch, you get 3 wefts. And 1 bundle is a pack. So 3 wefts per pack in 22-inch. 14 and 18, you do get 4. Candace says, I have a client that's oily and I feel like her beads slide down fast. She uses Aqua shampoo, but only washes 1 time per week. Candace, now are her beads slipping or is she growing fast? So if her beads are actually sliding, we want to ensure that we are prepping the hair properly. We come back to the middle, prepping her hair properly with the Aqua Prep shampoo, okay? So prepping, let me pull you back up here so we can see. Prepping 2 to 3 times with Aqua Prep shampoo before every application, any and every application, 2 to 3 times with the Aqua Prep shampoo. We want to use no conditioner, no product on the hair, okay? Blow dry her hair 100%. Smooth her hair out as you're blow drying, and then you're ready for the application. So her beads could be sliding because she's not being prepped, or we have to ensure that when we are closing our beads, the beads are getting clamped nice and tight, okay? So you do have to close and clamp the beads very, very tightly. I always say squeeze the guts out of the beads, right? Allow for that silicone to seep out of the beads slightly, just to ensure that your beads are closed very tight, okay? So try that. If for some reason you're still noticing, don't hesitate to reach out to me, Candace. You can find me on Instagram. So those of you who do not follow me on Instagram, we'll have a pop-up shortly if you are on Vimeo or YouTube or Facebook. But if you are on, thank you, I see that it's at Sharpie J. So if you are on Instagram, my Instagram is at Sharpie, SHARPI_J. So SHARPI_J, it's Samantha Sharpless. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions after today. I'm more than happy to help you, Candace, if you're struggling with that. Let's see, what challenges did you experience with clients when you first started? Misty, that's a great question. So when I first started, oh my goodness, it's hard to remember when I first started doing hand-tied weft extension, but the biggest challenge for me, I definitely think, was keeping the wefts nice and tight as I sewed, okay? So as I was sewing, making sure that they were in between each bead was nice and tight and my wefts did not sag. So use the tips that I showed you today, ensuring that everything stays nice and taut as you're sewing, and then your wefts are not sliding. Definitely say that was my biggest struggle when I first started. Okay, I have a client that likes to have a lot of wefts put in for her full install. I found that at least 1 row every time starts getting loose within the first 2 to 3 weeks after install. Thanks for going over everything. Absolutely. So Katie, she says that she notices that at least 1 row starts to get loose. Hopefully this helps you, Katie. Hopefully what you saw today with me sewing, keeping everything nice and tight, I really hope that this does help. Let me know. So Katie, message me, and after you do her install again, after 2 to 3 weeks passes, and see if she stays nice and tight. I would definitely love to see that. Haley says, do you tie down the front once you are done sewing on the weft? Yes, Haley. So after I complete the entire row, then I tie down the front left and the front right. Okay, so I always do that last after the entire row is complete. Okay. She says, this looks super thick on the sides. So with her hair being thinner in the front, does this work if she wanted to wear a ponytail? Yes, Misty. So remember how we had stacked the wefts? She's actually, this is really fine on her sides. So she only has 3 layers of weft here and here, and then she has more in the back. So she can easily pull this up, pull her hair back in a ponytail, because I know in the camera it may look, I think it looks fuller because the color difference, right? Because it's blonde with black thread and blonde beads, and she has really dark hair, but it's actually super, super fine here on the sides. So she absolutely can pull her hair up and back with ease when we're all done. So I'm going to finish this row, and I will post a little video on my Instagram. So follow me on @SharpieJ, SHARPI_J, and we'll make sure we share it to Aqua's Instagram as well. This way you can see the final result. So those are all such good questions. Thanks, guys. I hope that this helped. I really hoped that this really does a lot of the troubleshooting questions for you. I know, like I said, we're getting the same troubleshooting questions, so we wanted to make sure that we answer them live for you. So if you are watching the replay, please let us know what you think. If you're watching this live, give us a thumbs up. I hope this really helps. I see lots of hearts going by. So thank you guys so, so much. I've just another minute. If you guys have any last minute questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. And again, I just really hope that this helped you. Please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're already going into mid-May. Sorry, I'm like lost my train of thought. We're already in mid-May. So our next session is in June. If you want to watch this replay and you want to share it with someone, you'll find us in the World of Aqua Facebook group. So World of Aqua 2021 Facebook group. You will find the replay of this session number 6. And our next session is June 7th. So you'll see us again June 7th for our next World of Aqua session number 7. And like I said, you'll find us in World of Aqua 2021 Facebook group. You can find all of our previous replays. So if you loved this session and you're like, okay, let me go back and find the other hand-tied weft session that she did, you'll find that in the World of Aqua Facebook group. So please comment, share with us any questions that you have, what you loved about the session, and even anything else that you would love us to show. We're always looking for tips and feedback and tricks, so stay tuned. We do have some new fun things launching with Aqua, so stay tuned on Facebook, on Instagram, and check your emails because we have some really awesome things launching very shortly. So again, thank you for spending your Monday afternoon with me and my little sister. I'm so excited I got to spend the day with her. She actually works with me here in the salon, so we get to spend every single day together, which is absolutely amazing. So hug your little sisters today if you have one. Hug your moms from yesterday and enjoy the rest of your Monday. If you're in the salon today, keep killing it. If you have your day off, relax and restart your week for the crazy busy week I'm sure all of you are going to have. So I love you all. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you on the next one.